The Warm Springs Natural Area is an island of green in the harsh Mojave Desert. With more than 24 springs that bubble to the surface, the area is home to a diverse population of plants and wildlife. And now, the Southern Nevada Water Authority is working to develop a unique educational experience for the public to enjoy the abundant natural resources too. Formerly known to the local population as the Warm Springs Ranch, the SNWA acquired the 1,220-acre Warm Springs Natural Area in 2007, utilizing funds from the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. As a condition of the funding, SNWA committed to maintaining the property as a natural area by protecting and enhancing its natural resources, restoring wildlife habitat, managing invasive plant and animal species, and stabilizing stream banks and channels. More than any other feature, the hydrology of Warm Springs is key to its landscape. As the climate warmed and dried over the last 15,000 years, surface flows mostly disappeared. Today, water still flows underground and faulting forces it to the surface, forming the 22-mile-long Muddy River, which flows to Lake Mead, Southern Nevada's primary source of drinking water. These springs not only play an integral role in the Southern Nevada watershed, but they offer a unique habitat for a special group of wildlife. Warm Springs' plentiful 90-degree spring water harbors 8 species that occur nowhere else on Earth and provide habitat for other rare species that live on the property. Most significant is the federally endangered Moapa dace, a tiny fish whose only habitat is in these springs and in the upper reaches of the Muddy River. Protection and population recovery of native fish is a priority at Warm Springs.
Well, the dace is an endangered species. It was one of the first species listed on the Endangered Species Act back in 1967 and then again in 1973. And so there's always been concern about this fish. It's been heavily impacted by water development right here in this area, as well as invasive species. So people have been worried about the Moapa dace for over 40 years, and as managing our water supply in this area, we're picking up the concern for the dace.
Of great concern was the plunge in the Moapa dace population in 2008, when numbers dropped to a low of just 459. Since then, SNWA scientists have worked to restore their habitat and manage invasive plants and animals that threaten the dace. Biologists conduct a count of the fish twice a year, in spring and fall. Recent surveys found more than 1,900 Moapa dace now thriving in the streams.
Up to the mid-90s, the Moapa dace population numbers fluctuated at around 1,000 individuals. They were restricted to just the upper spring heads by some fish barriers that were installed to prevent invasive species from coming up and eating the dace. Once the Water Authority acquired the property, we started doing the counts twice a year at that point, and as we continued doing the counts, we were able to do some restoration on some of these streams, and the fish numbers responded positively and started to go up.
The Moapa dace is not the only rare species that inhabit these native streams and lush wetlands. In fact, 28 endangered or sensitive species can be found throughout the year at Warm Springs. The area is also home to 225 species of birds, including the largest breeding population of vermilion flycatchers in Nevada. SNWA works with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Nevada Department of Wildlife, the Nature Conservancy, and other partners and stakeholders to maintain the balance of this delicate desert ecosystem.
The Fish and Wildlife Service works with partners to protect this area for an endangered species of fish, the Moapa dace, but also a diversity of plants and animals. Sometimes when you drive out in the desert, in the Mojave Desert, it looks like a barren wasteland. And you come out to this valley and it takes your breath away, because it's this oasis in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And these special places need extra protection and people to care about these places, because they sustain a diversity of life that's here and sustains an area for people to come to enjoy nature, the tranquility of nature, but also so that these places, this water and these habitats are protected for our future generations.
As part of the grant funding commitment, SNWA is developing educational and recreational areas throughout the property. Future visitors will be able to hike trails, observe wildlife, and take in sweeping views thanks to a low-impact trail system. Workers are forging ahead to create a fun and unique experience for guests. Once completed, visitors will be able to explore interpretive kiosks that illustrate the area's history and protected wildlife, as well as viewing decks and paths that follow along 2 streams. Additional plans include a variety of structures, such as an amphitheater, restroom, shade structure, and seating areas. Visitors will also be encouraged to continue their explorations across the street at the 116-acre Moapa Valley National Wildlife Refuge. The Wildlife Refuge offers additional nature trails and specially constructed fish viewing chamber that allows visitors to see native Moapa White River springfish and Moapa dace feeding in the turbulent spring brook. The future outlook of the Warm Springs Natural Area and the wildlife that call it home is positive. Much like the Wildlife Refuge, Warm Springs will provide a greater opportunity for the community to enjoy this special place.
One of our main goals is to outreach to the public and get people to understand why these places are here, why they're so special, and grow an understanding and support for what we're doing, not just for the wildlife, but for the entire ecosystem and for our future generations. And so we do this in a number of different ways. We, of course, have a really great website, Facebook page. We try to reach out to people in the community through outreach at activities, fairs, festivals, going to special groups, inviting these people to come to these areas so they can see it for themselves and get connected with the land. But also, we do a lot of programs with the community, especially the school groups, asking them to, year after year to get the community to learn about what's right here in their backyard and feel connected to this place that's part of their community.
Public access to the Warm Springs Natural Area could be available as early as 2016. For more information about Warm Springs, visit snwa.com. Warm Springs Natural Area has a storied past, but the SNWA is most excited about its future. Soon, visitors to Warm Springs will be able to explore this hidden treasure, learn about its environmental significance, and witness all its beauty for themselves. Reporting for Waterways, I'm Jenna Nava.